The soft hum of machines filled the dimly lit research station as Tom Reed stared at his monitor screen. 3 months had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Council, and he still couldn't believe he was working at the edge of known space. The lonely research station orbited a distant planet that most species avoided, but that's exactly what made it perfect for studying new life forms. A red light began flashing on his console. Tom leaned forward, adjusting his glasses as he studied the energy readings. They were unlike anything he had seen before. "Strange," he muttered, tapping the screen. "Computer, analyze these patterns." The computer beeped. "Warning. Energy signature matches known patterns of Nyx species. Station protocols require immediate evacuation." Tom's heart skipped a beat. Everyone knew about the Nyx, the galaxy's most feared predators. They were the reason 3 colonies had gone dark in the past year alone. But instead of fear, Tom felt curiosity bubble up inside him. No one had ever gotten close enough to study a live Nyx. The station's external cameras activated automatically. Tom's mouth fell open as he watched the creature move across the landing pad outside. It was massive, easily twice his height, with sleek black scales that seemed to absorb light. 6 powerful limbs moved with careful precision, and its long tail swayed for balance. The creature's head housed 4 eyes that glowed with an eerie blue light. But something wasn't right. The Nyx's movements were uneven, favoring its right side. Tom zoomed in the camera and noticed dark liquid dripping from a wound in its side. The station's warning system blared. "Attention. Dangerous predator detected. Beginning emergency lockdown. All personnel must evacuate immediately." Tom knew he should run to the escape pods. It was the safe choice, the smart choice. But as he watched the injured creature, he saw something in its movements that others had missed. The way it examined the station's outer walls, how it tested different materials with its claws. This wasn't mindless destruction. This was exploration. The Nyx suddenly turned its head, all 4 eyes staring directly into the camera. Tom felt a chill run down his spine. There was intelligence in those eyes. His communication device crackled. "Research Station 47. This is Station Command. We're reading a Class A threat at your location. Escape pods are prepped for launch. You must evacuate now." Tom picked up the device with shaking hands. "Command, this is Tom Reed. The Nyx appears to be injured. I request permission to." "Negative. All previous attempts at contact have resulted in death. Evacuation is not optional. Reed." Outside, the Nyx had moved closer to the station's main airlock. It wasn't attacking or trying to break in. Instead, it was examining the control panel with what looked like curiosity. Tom made his decision. "Command, there's interference on my end. Please repeat." He switched off the device. Moving quickly, Tom grabbed a medical kit and headed for the airlock. His heart pounded as he approached the reinforced doors. Everything he'd been taught said this was suicide. The Nyx were killers, destroying everything in their path. But as he looked through the airlock window, the creature met his gaze. In that moment, something passed between them, a spark of recognition between 2 intelligent beings. Tom's hands moved to the airlock controls. Sometimes the greatest discoveries came from defying expectations. Sometimes you had to trust your instincts over your fear. As the outer door began to open, Tom whispered, "Well, let's make history." The Nyx watched him with those glowing blue eyes, and Tom could have sworn he saw something there that no other human had lived to document. Not hunger, not rage, but curiosity. For the first time since humans joined the galactic community, a member of their species stood face to face with the galaxy's most lethal predator. And neither one was running away. The airlock hissed as it sealed behind Tom. His heart hammered in his chest as he stood just 15 feet away from the most dangerous predator known to the galaxy. The Nyx's massive form towered over him, its black scales shifting like oil under the station's external lights. To his surprise, the creature remained still, all 4 eyes fixed on the medical kit in his hands. Tom moved slowly, keeping his movements smooth and deliberate. The wound on the Nix's side still leaked a dark fluid. "Easy now," Tom whispered, though he knew the creature couldn't understand him. "I just want to help." His communication device suddenly burst to life, making both him and the Nix jump. "Reed, your life signs are detected outside the station. Have you lost your mind?" Station Command's voice was filled with panic. The Nix's head snapped toward the sound, a low growl rumbling from its throat. Tom quickly switched off the device again, but the damage was done. The creature had backed away, its tail now raised in what he guessed was a defensive position. "Wait," Tom called out softly, setting down both the device and the medical kit. He raised his empty hands. "See, no threats here." The Nix tilted its head, studying him with those glowing blue eyes. Then, to Tom's amazement, it mimicked his gesture, raising two of its front limbs slowly into the air. "You're copying me," Tom breathed. "You understand this is a peaceful signal." His excitement was cut short by a deafening alarm from the station. Emergency lights began flashing as a computerized voice announced, "Warning, extermination protocol initiated. Defense systems activating in 10 minutes. All personnel must evacuate immediately." Tom's blood ran cold. He knew what that meant. Station Command was preparing to eliminate the threat. Standard procedure when dealing with Nix. Shoot first. Don't bother asking questions later. The Nix's reaction surprised him again. Instead of attacking or fleeing, it looked at the station's defense turrets as they emerged from hidden panels. Then it looked back at Tom, making a series of clicking sounds. "Those will kill you if you stay," Tom said, pointing at the turrets. The Nix followed his gesture, then made more clicking sounds. It stepped closer to Tom, moving with surprising grace for its size, and used one of its claws to point at the medical kit. Tom's eyes widened. "You know what this is for. You came here for help, didn't you?" The station's voice continued its countdown. 8 minutes remained. Making a decision that would either get him killed or change history, Tom grabbed the medical kit and stepped toward the wounded predator. The Nix stayed perfectly still as he approached, only its eyes moving to track him. "Command's going to court-martial me for this," Tom muttered as he opened the kit. "That's if they don't shoot me for treason first." Working quickly but carefully, Tom began treating the wound. The Nix's scales were warm to the touch, and he could feel powerful muscles beneath them. The creature watched him work with what seemed like fascination. 5 minutes remained when Tom finished applying the last bandage. The wound wasn't fully healed, but it would help. The Nix examined the bandaged area, then turned its attention back to Tom. It made a new sound, softer than before, almost like a purr. "You're welcome," Tom said, "but now we need to." He was cut off by the sound of approaching ships. Through the clouds appeared 3 military vessels, their weapons already deployed. The station's speakers crackled. "This is Captain Rogers of the Emergency Response Team. Step away from the creature. Reed." "That's an order." The Nix tensed, its eyes now fixed on the ships. But instead of preparing to attack, it moved to stand between Tom and the approaching vessels. It was protecting him. "Wait," Tom shouted into his restored comm device. "You don't understand what's happening here. The Nix, it's not what we thought. It's intelligent. It can communicate." "You have 1 minute to step away," Rogers replied coldly. "Then we open fire." Tom looked at the Nix, who was still shielding him. In that moment, he realized that sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking every rule in the book. "Captain," he said firmly, "you'll have to shoot me too." A tense silence filled the air as the military ships hovered above them. Tom stood his ground, feeling strangely safe despite having the galaxy's deadliest predator at his back. The Nix hadn't moved from its protective position between him and the ships. "Last warning, Reed," Captain Rogers' voice boomed through the speakers. "Step away from the creature." Tom's mind raced. He needed to prove the Nix's intelligence. Fast. Looking around, He spotted the portable light panel used for emergency repairs. An idea struck him. "Captain, give me 5 minutes," he said. "Let me show you something." There was a long pause. 3 minutes, Rogers finally replied. "Any sudden moves from that thing, and we fire." Tom grabbed the light panel and turned to face the Knicks. Those glowing blue eyes watched him with what he now recognized as intelligence. Switching on the panel, he created a simple pattern. 3 flashes, pause, 3 flashes. The Knicks tilted its head, studying the lights. Then, to Tom's delight, it raised one of its claws. The bioluminescent patches on its scales lit up, copying the pattern perfectly. "Did you see that?" Tom called out excitedly. "It's copying the pattern. This isn't just mimicry, it's communication." He changed the pattern. 2 quick flashes, 1 long glow. Again, the Knicks repeated it perfectly. Then, to everyone's surprise, it added its own pattern. 1 long glow, 3 quick flashes. "It's not just copying," Tom explained, his voice filled with wonder. "It's responding, creating new patterns. This is two-way communication." The military ships remained in position, but their weapons hadn't fired. Tom could almost feel the confusion radiating from them. Building on this success, Tom pointed to himself. "Tom," he said clearly, placing his hand on his chest. Then he pointed to the Knicks. The creature watched him intently. It touched its chest with 1 claw, making a series of soft clicks that sounded almost like "Kral." "Kral," Tom repeated carefully. "Your name is Kral." The Knicks, Kral, bobbed its head in what looked remarkably like a nod. Then it did something even more amazing. It pointed 1 claw at the wound Tom had treated, then at Tom, and finally raised its front limbs in the peaceful gesture they'd shared earlier. "It's thanking me," Tom said, making sure his comm device was transmitting. "Captain, are you seeing this? The Knicks understand gratitude. They understand the concept of helping others." "Impossible," Rogers muttered, but his voice held less certainty now. "All records show them as mindless killers." As if understanding it was being talked about, Krell turned toward the ships. Slowly, deliberately, it raised its front limbs in the peaceful gesture. The bioluminescent patches on its scales created a gentle, pulsing pattern, like a heartbeat. "They've been trying to communicate with us all along," Tom realized. "But we were too scared to notice. Every other species just attacked them on sight." The tension in the air began to shift. Tom could see the weapons on the military ships powering down. "Reed," Rogers said finally, "Command wants you to bring that. Bring Krall into the station for observation. Can you do that safely?" Tom looked at Krall, who was watching the exchange with apparent interest. He pointed to the station's airlock, then at himself, then at Krall, making a walking motion with his fingers. Krall studied the gestures, then made a sound that was almost like a laugh. It moved toward the airlock with smooth, careful steps, pausing to look back at Tom as if saying, "Are you coming?" As they walked together toward the station entrance, Tom couldn't help but smile. In just a few hours, he'd gone from nearly being evacuated to making the biggest breakthrough in interspecies communication in galactic history. "You know," he said to Krall as the airlock cycled, "we humans have a long history of befriending predators. Back on Earth, we turned wolves into dogs over thousands of years." He chuckled. "Though I guess we're speedrunning that process with you." Krall responded with more clicks and a pattern of lights that seemed almost playful. Inside the station, monitoring equipment would help Tom better understand Krall's language of lights and sounds. But he already knew the most important thing. Sometimes the deadliest predator could turn out to be your best ally. 2 weeks had passed since Krall first entered the station. Tom sat in the observation room, reviewing footage of their latest communication session, when the alarms went off again. "Multiple Nix signatures detected," the computer announced. 5 creatures approaching from the north. Tom rushed to the window. Through the planet's perpetual mist, he could see dark shapes moving with deadly grace. They were similar to Krell in size and form, but their scale patterns were different. "Krell's pack," Tom whispered. He'd been expecting this. Krell had been trying to explain something about others coming through their developing light pattern language. Beside him, Krell stood up from its resting position. Its bioluminescent patches lit up in a complex sequence that Tom had never seen before. To his amazement, similar patterns of light flickered across the scales of the approaching Nyx. Captain Rogers' voice crackled through the comm. "Reed, we're seeing multiple hostiles. Should we engage?" "Negative," Tom replied quickly. "Krell is communicating with them. Let's watch." The new Nyx approached the station's perimeter. Tom noticed they weren't moving in attack formation. Instead, they seemed to be hurting something. A massive creature burst from the mist behind them. It was easily twice the size of a Nyx, with armored plates and multiple rows of teeth. Tom recognized it as a behemoth, one of the planet's native predators that even the station's defense systems struggle to handle. They're hunting, Tom realized, working together to take down larger prey. The hunt that unfolded before them was like nothing Tom had ever seen. The Nyx moved in perfect coordination, using their superior speed and agility to tire out the larger creature. They communicated through patterns of light that flashed across their scales, adapting their strategy in real time. Krell watched intently, its tail swaying with excitement. Then, to Tom's surprise, it turned to him and made the gesture they used for together. "You want me to watch the hunt up close?" Tom asked, pointing to the observation deck below. Krell nodded, a human gesture it had picked up quickly, and moved toward the airlock. "Reed," Rogers warned through the comm, "that's not safe." "Trust me, Captain," Tom replied, grabbing his recording equipment. "This is the chance to understand their hunting behavior. Krell will protect me." The observation deck put them closer to the action, while still maintaining a safe distance. Tom watched in awe as the Nyx pack executed their hunt with surgical precision. Each member had a role. Some distracted the behemoth, while others struck at vulnerable points. Just like wolf packs back on Earth, Tom narrated into his recorder. Highly coordinated social hunting behavior. They're not mindless killers. They're apex predators with complex social structures. The behemoth finally began to tire. The lead Nyx, larger than the others with distinctive silver-edged scales, flashed a pattern that sent the others into their final attack positions. What happened next left Tom speechless. Instead of going for the kill, the Nyx pack disabled the behemoth, targeting its legs with precise strikes. The creature collapsed, unable to move but very much alive. Krell turned to Tom and made their symbol for watch. Then it joined its pack. The Nyx surrounded the fallen behemoth. Together, they created a beautiful display of synchronized light patterns. Tom realized they were performing some kind of ritual before the kill. "They honor their prey," he whispered into his recorder. "They don't kill for sport or out of mindless aggression. They're hunters, yes, but with a code." After the ritual, the lead Nyx made the kill quickly and cleanly. Then something extraordinary happened. The pack began to share the meat, with clear hierarchy, but no fighting. And to Tom's amazement, Krell brought a portion to him. "Thank you," Tom said, touched by the gesture even though he couldn't eat it. "But I have my own food inside." Krell made their equivalent of a laugh, a sort of rumbling click, and took back the meat. But the message was clear. Tom was being accepted by the pack. As he watched the Nyx share their meal, Tom knew he was witnessing something revolutionary. The galaxy's most feared predators weren't monsters. They were intelligent, social beings with their own culture and customs. And humanity had just become the first species to see it. A month into his research, Tom sat in his lab surrounded by holographic displays showing Nyx light patterns. He'd made huge progress in understanding their language. But something still bothered him about the colony attacks. Krell stood nearby, watching Tom work. Using their now well-established communication system, Tom decided to ask the question that had been nagging at him. Why did your people attack the colonies? Tom created the light pattern for past, followed by one they used for conflict. Krell's reaction was immediate. The Nyx's scales dimmed, a sign Tom had learned meant sadness or distress. Then Krell moved to the station's main display and began creating a series of complex light patterns. Tom watched carefully, translating. Home, young ones, danger. His eyes widened. The colonies were near your breeding grounds. Krell confirmed with a nod, then continued the light story. Tom's heart sank as he understood. The colonies had been built directly on top of ancient Nyx nesting sites. The attacks weren't random acts of violence. They were desperate attempts to protect their young. Computer, Tom called out, show me the locations of the destroyed colonies. A star map appeared. Tom overlaid it with his data on Nyx movements. Everything lined up perfectly. Each colony had been built in regions that showed regular Nyx migration patterns. Nobody even checked, Tom whispered. They just started building. Krell made the sound that meant follow and headed toward the airlock. Tom grabbed his recording equipment and hurried after the Nyx. They'd done this enough times now that Station Command barely reacted when they went outside together. They walked for about an hour across the planet's rocky surface. Tom noticed more Nyx gathering around them, not just Krell's hunting pack, but others too. They arrived at what looked like a cave entrance, much larger than Tom had expected. Krell stopped at the entrance and turned to Tom. The light pattern it created was one Tom had never seen before. Complex and beautiful. Trust, Tom translated the first part. The second part took him a moment. Family. Krell nodded and led the way inside. As Tom's eyes adjusted to the darkness, he gasped. The cave walls were covered in bioluminescent markings, generations of Nyx light patterns preserved like cave paintings on Earth. But what truly amazed him were the young Nyx. Dozens of them, smaller than the adults, their scales showing patterns that seemed to shift and dance in the cave's darkness. They were practicing their light communications, learning their species' language. It's a nursery, Tom realized. A school. One of the young Nyx approached Tom, curiosity clear in its movements. It created a simple light pattern, the equivalent of hello that Tom had taught Krell weeks ago. Hello, Tom responded with his light panel, fighting back tears. The young one bounced with excitement at his response. An older Nyx, the pack leader with silver-edged scales, stepped forward. It created a pattern that showed the colonies being built, followed by images of young ones in danger. Then, to Tom's surprise, it showed humans and Nyx together, sharing space peacefully. You want to find a way to coexist, Tom said. You never wanted war. You just needed us to understand. The pack leader confirmed with a gentle pattern of lights. Tom took out his recorder, his hands shaking slightly. This is Tom Reed, day 32 of Nyx observation. I'm standing in what can only be described as a Nyx cultural center and nursery. These creatures, which we feared for so long, have been protecting something precious. Their children, their future. The colony attacks weren't acts of aggression, but desperate defensive measures. He turned to face Krell. We've been wrong about them. All this time, we've been the ones invading their space, threatening their young. And still, they're willing to try for peace. As if understanding the importance of the moment, all the Nyx in the cave, adults and young ones alike, created a synchronized light display. It was beautiful and complex, telling a story of hope for the future. Tom knew then that his next task would be the hardest yet, convincing the Galactic Council that everything they knew about the Nyx was wrong. The emergency sirens woke Tom from his sleep. Red lights flashed throughout the station as the computer announced, "Warning. Multiple ships entering orbit. Galactic Council extermination fleet detected." Tom rushed to the command center, his heart pounding. Through the main viewport, he could see them. 15 massive warships, their weapons already powering up. The Galactic Council had made their decision without even reviewing his research. This is High Commander Vex of the Galactic Council, A cold voice announced through the station's comm system. "We have received reports of unauthorized contact with Class A hostile species. The Nyx threat will be eliminated. Clear the area immediately." Tom grabbed the comm. "High Commander, this is Tom Reed. You can't do this. The Nyx are intelligent beings. I have proof." "Your proof is denied." Vex cut him off. 3 council species have voted for immediate extermination. The human vote does not override council majority. Through the window, Tom saw movement on the planet's surface. Hundreds of Nyx were emerging from their caves, their scales lighting up in patterns of alarm. Among them, he spotted Krall and the pack leader. "Captain Rogers," Tom called desperately. "The fleet. They'll kill them all." There was a pause before Rogers responded. "Already on it. Reed." "Earth Command agrees. This is wrong. We're sending ships, but they won't arrive for 6 hours." Tom knew the Nyx wouldn't survive 6 hours. He had to do something now. "Krall." He shouted into his personal comm device, using their shared light pattern language. "Get everyone back in the caves." But Krall and the pack leader had other plans. Instead of retreating, they began organizing the other Nyx. Hundreds of them moved in perfect coordination, their scales creating a massive light display visible from orbit. "By the stars," Rogers whispered through the comm. "Are they talking to us?" The Nyx were forming enormous light patterns, not just communication signals, but images. They showed scenes of their daily life. Hunting, teaching young ones, living in harmony with the planet. Then they showed the colonies being built over their nurseries, their desperate attempts to protect their children. "High Commander," Tom tried again. "Look at what they're showing us. They're not mindless killers. They're protecting their families." "Irrelevant," Vex replied, but Tom heard uncertainty in his voice. "The vote is cast. Weapons are locked on target." Suddenly, Krall broke away from the group. The Nyx raced toward the station at full speed, 6 powerful limbs eating up the distance. Tom ran to the airlock, knowing what his friend needed. Together, they rushed to the station's main communication array. Krall's scales lit up with a pattern Tom recognized. They needed more power for their message. "Computer," Tom commanded, "direct all auxiliary power to external lighting systems." The station's powerful lights blazed to life. Krall connected its light patterns with the station's array, amplifying the message to an incredible scale. Now the Nexus story was impossible to ignore. A kilometer-high display of light and motion, telling their history, their culture, their hopes for peace. The other Nyx joined in, their combined patterns creating a symphony of light that lit up the planet's atmosphere. It was beautiful, intelligent, and undeniably the work of a sentient species. In orbit, the warship's weapons powered down. "High Commander," a new voice joined the comm. Admiral Chen from Earth Command, arriving earlier than expected. "The human government calls for an immediate emergency council session. These beings are clearly intelligent. Any attack would violate galactic law regarding sentient species." There was a long silence. Tom held his breath, watching the warships, feeling Krall's presence beside him. Finally, Vex spoke. "Though the extermination order is suspended pending review. But mark my words, human, if one Nyx shows any sign of aggression, we will finish this." Tom looked at Krall, who was creating a pattern of light that meant thank you. Around them, hundreds of Nyx continued their peaceful display, showing the galaxy who they really were. It wasn't a final victory, but it was a start. For the first time, the Nyx had been given a chance to tell their own story, and humanity had kept its promise to stand by its newfound friends. 6 months after the confrontation with the extermination fleet, the research station had grown into something much bigger. New buildings surrounded the original structure, their designs a unique blend of human and Nyx architecture. Light panels covered every surface, allowing for constant communication between the two species. Tom stood in the new diplomatic chamber, watching as Krall explained Nyx culture to a group of amazed alien representatives. Using the advanced translation system they developed together, Krell's light patterns were instantly converted into multiple languages. As you can see, Tom added to Krell's presentation, the Nyx have been recording their history through light patterns for over 10,000 years. Their cave archives contain scientific knowledge that could benefit the entire galaxy. The alien representatives murmured among themselves. Even High Commander Vex, who had once ordered their extinction, watched with undisguised fascination as Krell demonstrated their species' mathematical understanding through complex light sequences. "Remarkable," said the Centaurian ambassador, his crystalline form reflecting Krell's lights. "We have made a terrible mistake in judging these beings." The pack leader stepped forward, its silver-edged scales creating patterns that the translator converted. "We understand your fear. For too long, we could not make you understand us. The humans taught us that sometimes the best way to remove fear is to share knowledge." Tom smiled, remembering how far they'd come. The first joint human-Nyx patrol ships now protected the space lanes, their crews working together to keep peace. The Nyx's superior hunting abilities and humans' diplomatic skills had proven to be a powerful combination. "The Council votes to officially recognize the Nyx as a sentient species," announced Vex, his earlier hostility replaced with respect. "All their territories will be protected under galactic law. Furthermore, we propose establishing permanent learning centers where our species can study their unique form of communication." Krell turned to Tom, creating their private signal for happiness, a pattern they'd developed during their first days of communication. Tom responded with his own light panel, completing the sequence. The chamber's doors opened, and a group of young Nyx entered alongside human children from the new colony. The children carried light panels of their own, communicating with their Nyx friends through patterns they'd learned in the new joint schools. "This," Tom said to the assembly, "is our future. 20 years ago, we humans were still limited to our own solar system. Now we're helping bridge understanding between species across the galaxy, not through force or fear, but through curiosity and compassion." The pack leader created a new pattern, one that combined elements from both human and Nyx language. "Together, we hunt for knowledge." After the meeting, Tom and Krell stood on their favorite observation deck, watching the sunset create natural light patterns across the planet's misty surface. Below them, human and Nyx children played together in the protected valleys that had once been war zones. "You know," Tom said, using his light panel to communicate, "some people back on Earth still can't believe this worked. They keep asking how I knew to trust you that first day." Krell's response pattern translated to amusement. "You saw past the surface, like your ancestors who first saw wolves not as enemies, but as potential allies." Tom nodded. A nearby display showed live feeds from across the galaxy, Nyx helping to track down space pirates, their hunting skills now used to protect trade routes. Human linguists working with Nyx teachers to preserve their light pattern history. Joint research teams making breakthrough discoveries using combined knowledge from both species. "The galaxy feared us because they didn't understand us," Krell's pattern said. "You humans feared us too, but you chose to learn instead of run. That made all the difference." As the sun set, both human and Nyx settlements began lighting up across the planet's surface. The lights created a beautiful mixture of patterns, some human, some Nyx, and many that were something new altogether. A visual language of harmony between species that had once been enemies. Tom created one final light pattern for the day, the simple sequence that had started it all, when he first realized the galaxy's deadliest predator was trying to communicate. Krell responded with the same pattern, both of them remembering that crucial moment when fear gave way to friendship, changing their civilizations forever. Together, they watched the lights below tell their story to the stars.